is okay because it's adjacent to humility, and it's that you've understood something, that you're living amidst meaninglessness, deception and corruption. But you can't just live in that, you are personally responsible for changing the world.
You said we're headed for upheaval, had it cushy up to here. Is they clusterfuck the future? I'm lackluster with my peers. Is they carpet bomb the capital whilst the ice reduced to tears? Distracted by advancement, all I answered was oh dear. I used to fancy myself as a master anti-capitalist poster boy, tear gas gasping, grandstanding soldier boy, latching on to Trotsky, followed flocks of bearded men. We argued over ends and means, forgot that we were friends. Squandered it with squabbles whilst the horrible lot got stronger. Said never again I lost, but never got our shit together. Now we're hanging on to fragments of splintered opinions, whilst the right invites itself inside with no opposition. All I ask is after the snowflakes melt, what is left, what is next? Earth evaporates in a passive mess. We've slowed down to function, inactive at best, and glass never shatters when we don't hold our breath. The caps lock the present till they capsize the future. A glut of abundant, self-indulgent polluters. A backdrop of end times, a countdown conundrum. Do I stand to do something to curb the confusion? The caps lock the present till they capsize the future. A glut of abundant, self-indulgent polluters. A backdrop of end times, a countdown conundrum. Do I stand to do something to curb the confusion? Do I begrudge myself for not budging an ink right at the brink as water rises past my eyes and land begins to sink? Getting too bogged down, sifting my own bullshit to lift a finger for those born in the war who live in the distance. Dip my toes into protest like a floating tourist, skipping the next flight, forget to check out my white privilege. I wish good riddance to the villains who pillage our livings and the winnings who wouldn't piss on the civilian minions if they were fire victims. But I've let these putrid losers off the hook to rule roast of souls, join a long queue of excuses in an age of pushovers. Scroll through the side roads that divert us from the action, with platforms and downgrade passions by micromanaged tantrums. I've ended up as a moderate late my parents said I would do, in a malaise of complacency reminiscent of my youth. Of a Guevara t-shirt where I ask them why revolution's so taboo, and was announced it's just the fears of the haven't got a clue. The caps lock the present till they capsize the future. A glut of abundant, self-indulgent polluters. A backdrop of end times, a countdown conundrum. Do I stand to do something to curb the confusion? The caps lock the present till they capsize the future. A glut of abundant, self-indulgent polluters. A backdrop of end times, a countdown conundrum. Do I stand to do something to curb the confusion? What's gonna last a plast on the past, but the wounds of the future are wide open with polarized emotions and polluted solutions. Prize off the dried muck stuff to the ruffling of your feathers. If folks are not given here, we not all fucked in this feeling endeavour. And Obi-Wan Kenobi was never gonna be our only hope, but now Labour's pulling apart the polls by scoring at own goals. As Jab and anti-vax clash, the fat cats have the last laugh. Black and tax cash with pals passing backhand our contract. And the search engines take mentions to plunder all our thoughts, while Zuckerberg is lurking in a meta discourse. We're too busy hurting others' quirks with hyperboles on a QWERTY. Consider irritating worthless in another 30. We're succumbed to dumbness, and through stupidity is hate. And while it might be fashionable to be an arsehole, it's not time to call all fate. In humanity we breathe the neon and persevere through a maze. Sign your sincerely a citizen, I want to seal a better fate. The caps lock the present till they capsize the future. A glut of abundant, self-indulgent polluters. A backdrop of end times, a countdown conundrum. Do we stand to do something to curb the confusion? The caps lock the present till they capsize the future. A glut of abundant, self-indulgent polluters. A backdrop of end times, a countdown conundrum. Do we stand to do something to curb the confusion? The caps lock the present till they capsize the future. A glut of abundant, self-indulgent polluters. A backdrop of end times, a countdown conundrum. Do you stand to do something to curb the confusion? Do you stand to do something? Do you stand to do something? Do you stand to do something? Anything, just something, before it's too late.